All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Aminah Gooch from Lane College. This is Breakout Session B. Our topic is mathematics today. Applied mathematics, working on practical problems by formulating mathematical models in engineering. So this session is actually going to explore some applications of mathematics and engineering. We'll talk about some space exploration all the way to renewable energy. In addition, we are actually going to hear from a graduate student perspective on the applications of mathematics in biotechnology. So today, your moderator is going to be Ntirenganyi Karamba. He is a biology major at Lane College. And I will go ahead and turn it over to him. Reminder, everyone, also, please go ahead and make sure that you are on mute unless you are speaking.
Good morning, everyone. I am Ntirenganyi Karamba here at Lane College, and it is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Chavis, NASA engineer and math professor here at Lane College. Please welcome Dr. Chavis.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you all are having an awesome day, and I'm going to get ready to prepare to share my screen. So if you hold on for just a moment. Hopefully I will be able to share the appropriate materials. Do you all see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome, awesome. So I am Katherine Chavis, and I am currently an aerospace engineer at Marshall Space Flight Center, as well as an adjunct instructor for Lane College. And I am very happy to talk about this topic today. What's this math good for anyway? And this is from my mathematics to my engineering perspective. Okay, so let's see why my screen overview. So the first thing we want to make sure is you all will know what is actually happening in my presentation. So first we'll discuss why mathematics, then we'll discuss the mathematical modeling definition, next the mathematical modeling process flow, and then we will do a video exercise. So why mathematics? You know, there are so many people who complain about mathematics. They say that it is boring. They say that it is complicated. And then there are others who say, oh, I love mathematics. Then there are people that are just like, oh, I like it. And then, of course, they hate it. And then there are some other choice 4-letter words that people would like to say about mathematics, but you can fill in the blank yourself as to how you truly feel about mathematics. But mathematics is all around us. And because I know I have people who just don't believe that mathematics is all around us and it's just a bunch of blah, 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 blah. So I have to let you know, why is mathematics important? First of all, for those of you who have watches that were analog back in the day, because so many people use these phones now for time, but if you have a clock in your home, it's an analog clock, and it helps you to be able to tell time. It also helps you to be a better cook or a baker, because so many times you actually have to double recipes. Sometimes you have to know how to use your fractions, your different types of measurements. So it's definitely to help you be a better cook or a baker. It helps you shop for a good sale. So many times you'll now see buy one, get one free, or buy one, get one half off. And especially when you see those buy one, gets one free, you're essentially saying, I'm getting 50% off. So why not just give me the 50% off, say 50% off, but it's a sales gimmick. So people definitely gravitate to that sale when they say buy one, get one free. It helps you with your finances. And, you know, that's the main reason I think as a kid, I loved mathematics so much, because it helped me to be able to save money, to be able to budget, to balance a checkbook. And my mom made me balance a checkbook really early in life. So it was definitely helpful with me with my finances. It helps you to become more popular. How is that? When you're very good with math and people around you cannot do math as well, they seem very impressed with who you are and what your capabilities are. Say, for instance, you're at dinner and you need to provide the tip, and you're able to quickly verify what the tip is and to tell each person at the table how much money you owe for that tip. So it helps you to become more popular. It helps you also to be a better problem solver. Mathematics forces you to think analytically, to think critically, and so you're able to solve problems that other people were not able to quickly solve. It helps you in your STEAM careers. And of course, I know some people are wondering about that A that is there. Of course, the S is for the science, technology, engineering. That A is for art, and the M is for mathematics. And with everything that I found that I've done in, whether it's engineering or mathematics, there is some creativity that's involved. So that's why I use the letter A in this acronym, and not just go with the practical STEM. I went with STEAM careers. So we have scientists who utilize mathematics. As an engineer, I can't do anything without the mathematics. And so the technology is utilizing a lot of mathematical concepts. So it just helps you tremendously in all of the STEAM careers. And then it helps your brain. I mean, there's a cognitive side of your brain that when you're very good with mathematics, it just helps it to be able to function better. Oh, so next we have, ultimately, to summarize mathematics, it helps you to solve word problems. It also helps you to solve real world problems. And so I have a question that I need to put out to all of you all that are participating. Do you know the difference between a word problem and a real world problem? And if you're muted, don't forget to unmute.
So you
Okay.
said, so what I think what you're saying is so a word problem and a words problem is like, you know, for instance, what you call what's the word? Arithmetic, right? Those are words problem, because it's like you have math in a that you have to, like, you know, they ask you, all right, how many cup of sugar do you need to bake a cookies? You know what I'm saying? That's a word problem. You have to, like, you know, answer it, but with a math equation. Now the word problem could be like, you know, trying to solve something. I mean, it's the same problem solving, but you might not need a math skills to solve that problem. You know, that's how I kind of understand it. You know what I'm saying? You may not need a math skills necessarily. You know what I'm saying? But you may need to do one or two, like, you know, checks, like adding one or two things that may not require physical math, but it's like you still doing math. You know what I'm saying? But I don't see it compared to if you were to be doing arithmetic, where you got like physical math, like, you know, numbers in it, like, you know, that's what I would say, you know.
Great, thank you, Paul. Michael, do you have any suggestions as to the difference between a word problem and a real world problem? And it's good to see you, as you're on mute so far.
Yeah, I was thinking one of them written down on paper and one of them not, because like
Okay.
I guess the most common thing that you do in math and something that's also in real world, um, when you have assignments that deal with ramps and triangles, you know, when you see it on paper, you know, it explains it better and it tells you what to do, what you're looking for in angles, but you could just as easily build. My granddad had to build a ramp for my grandmother, And it was the same thing, except his wasn't written on paper. That's a real world problem that we commonly see, especially in math when you starting out, like ramps. How long do you have to make it? Because now you gotta look at hypotenuse. You gotta use Pythagorean theorem, all the other triangles, the trig, and you don't really think too much about all that when you doing it. You just trying to set up a ramp, and you think it's just lay the 4x4 down at an angle, and it's fine.
And it's fine. So Michael was one of my trig students, so I was so happy to hear you talk about some of those trig concepts that we've utilized before. And Paul, you also gave a good answer as well. So here are the differences between word problems and real word problems. And of course, both of you all were right on track. And I'm going to read this because some of the differences are in there, and I don't want for you all to think that I'm belittling you, but I definitely want you to get these differences. So word problems are those type of problems you've seen in textbooks that explicitly gives you all the information you need so that you can translate phrases and do those computations in order to arrive at one correct answer. Whereas real word problems are those type of problems. They are open-ended questions. They don't have enough information to answer the questions, and they can have more than one solution. So the word problems that you all have seen in those textbooks, those are the ones that you're familiar with. And then when Michael gave his example, okay, I need a ramp out there so somebody that can access the doorway. And that is a real world problem that you don't have, what's the distance that's provided already. So a lot of information is not provided, and you have to make assumptions. You have to use all of your previous knowledge and experiences to be able to answer those real world problems. And it's more than one solution. When you have those textbook problems, yes, everybody should end up with the same answer. And if you don't have the same answer, oh, it's automatically wrong. So those real world problems can have more than one solution. And it doesn't mean that one is better than the other unless you're in a competition and you're being challenged. So nevertheless, that's what the differences are between real world problems and word problems. Do you all have any questions on that so far?
So Dr. Chavis, there's a question in the chat box, and you may have already answered this in your statement that you just made, but the question,
okay,
are they one and the same?
They are not one and the same. And as you can see, there are differences between word problems and real world problems. And so do you agree or disagree with my statement just after reading this information that's on the screen, whoever asked the question? I like dialogue. I like the interaction.
I agree.
Okay, well, fantastic. Well, perfect. So we will keep on moving. Just so you'll know what's next in our overview is the mathematical model, and they are perfect for these open-ended questions or problems. They give a representation of a system or a scenario that is used to gain qualitative and or quantitative understanding of some real-world problems. And that goes back to what Paul said earlier, it doesn't automatically have to be mathematics bound, and that's where that qualitative aspect comes into play. It may help you to predict future behavior. It may lead to these scientific advances, and then it may even provide the foundation for new discoveries. And as a matter of fact, these mathematical models have been utilized for all of these purposes that you've seen on the screen. Now, what are some examples of some real world problems? What is the optimal shape for a lecture hall? And you all have seen different shapes of lecture halls, but what is the optimal shape? And that is, of course, an open-ended question. Do you have enough details about the lecture hall already? Do you know its dimensions? Do you know the atmosphere, whether the environment needs to be air conditioned or if it needs to have one of those little wall units, so what is the optimal shape for a lecture hall? Should you buy or rent a house? And that's one of the questions that I've just recently asked my son who graduated from Lane in April of last year. And so I'm asking him right now, should you be buying or should you be renting? the savings that's involved in it, or it's so many different attributes that he's coming back with me at right now. So of course my mindset says to buy. His mindset is to rent, because he doesn't plan to be in Nashville forever and a day. But nevertheless, should you buy or rent a house, or should you buy or rent a car? There are leasing options out there now. Should an airline overbook? And if they do, by how much? And I don't know if you all have experiences going to the airport, and especially on Southwest, you know, you go in and at a certain point in time, they'll tell you they've reached the maximum number of seats, but you still have your ticket and you're ready to get on the plane because they've overbooked. So should an airline overbook, and by how much? The next type of real world problem is, can you predict the spread of nicotine use due to vaping? And I don't know if all of you all know what vaping is, but it's the inhalation of an aerosol created by vaporizing a liquid over the next 10 years. And this is becoming a major problem in the US right now. As a matter of fact, I got this question from the SCIAM website, and it's talking about how so many youth are starting to vape as opposed to smoking actual cigarettes. And so can you predict the spread of nicotine use due to this vaping over the next 10 years? And then what's prominent in the news right now, and what has changed our lives so much, is this coronavirus. So can you predict the spread of the coronavirus over the next 6 months? And these are all examples of real world problems. And these are all examples of the different type of STEAM careers that people will probably try to answer. And so what is the mathematical modeling ability? So in order to answer these type of open-ended questions, we need mathematical modeling. And so it helps, it develops with your experience. I can't say that both of you all that are my students that are here are going to automatically say you are an experienced mathematical modeler. And so I was fortunate to get this experience from both a mathematical and an engineering perspective. And of course, because my time is ticking, I said that I would try to focus on this from an engineering perspective, just so you all will understand what it is. So KMSC, those are my initials. From a rocket perspective, I'm an aerospace engineer at Marshall Space Flight Center. So how have I used this problem solving? And as an engineer, I'm expected to be able to approach, analyze, and solve all types of technical problems. My problems have been single solution, you know, very easy. I'm sorry, somebody asked a question. Okay, so very easy. And then I've had some complex problems that I've had to solve over my, I guess, 11 and a half to 12 years at Marshall Space Flight Center. And so in order to be able to find a solution, I've used mathematical modeling. And so many people, once you see what this model is, you're going to say, oh my God, I've seen this in my science experiments. I've seen this from an engineering perspective before. But nevertheless, mathematical modeling, here is a process. And like I said, I got some of this information from the SCIAM website. And so here is, you have this real world problem, and this is an iterative process, meaning that you don't just do it one time and it's said and done. But first of all, you define the problem. What is the actual problem, so you can make sure I can put it into terms that I can understand. You got to make assumptions, because like Michael gave his examples of the ramp. How far do I need to make the ramp be? Do I need to make it be at a certain slope? You know, so you're going to make some assumptions, and then you're going to have to define what those variables are. What are the primary factors that are pushing you towards this type of idea that you have? And after you get all of your variables defined, and then you find your different mathematical formulas, or you may even use some physics that's involved, some F equals ma, you know. So then after you have all of those ideas together, you're going to come up with a solution. You're going to test it, and then you're going to have a solution, and then you're going to sit back and say, I'm going to analyze it. Did my model answer the question that was provided? Did it actually enhance the next new advancement in science? You know, so you're coming back and then analyzing. And if it's not answering the question that you need, then you go back and do some refinements to what your assumptions were. Do you need to add in different variables or whatever? So that's where the researching and the brainstorming all comes into play. So just so we can get some examples here so you all can actually tell me what you think, as opposed to, since I know this is very short and I don't expect you all to have what mathematical modeling is in this short period of time, you're about to watch a Dragonfly TV video. Of course, Dragonfly TV was from PBS. And this was numerous years ago. It was right after I had my youngest son. So Dr. Chavis looks a little different because I'm actually in this video, and it was in one of my first laboratories that I worked at once I was at Marshall Space Flight Center. And so while you're watching this video, I want to see, can you determine any real world questions or problems that we answered while we were in this laboratory? Okay, are y'all ready? Y'all ready? I don't see any head.
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
Yes, ma'am.
All righty. So, how did y'all like the video? Oh, so let's go back to, can you determine any real world questions or problems that were answered? Who's speaking? Somebody open up their mic. Hello. Do I need to replay the video?
I'm not
Now,
sure.
I got a question.
Okay, who has a question?
Paul.
Paul. Hi, Paul.
Yeah. Hi. So does the question can be about the video, right?
Absolutely.
So anything we're seeing in the video, right?
Can you determine any real world questions? But if you want to ask some questions about the video, sure, you can ask some
Yeah.
questions about the video as well.
Yes, that's why I'm like, all right, so because like you can ask so many questions. Because for instance, if I'm new to this, right? Like I'm saying it before, right? The
Yes.
the first question that's gonna come to mind, like standing there watching, it's like how long it took you to set it up. You know what I'm saying? To set it up. So,
Okay.
like, you know what I'm saying? So that could be what you call question, how long it took you to set it up. And
To
then
actually produce this video, or to set up the
no,
floor, or to
to
set
set up
up
the
the
flow.
actual model
Yeah,
itself?
to set up the flow, like
Okay.
to get stuff where it need to be, where you think stuff need to go, like all that. How long it took you, you know what I'm saying? Because
Yes.
this time that time being used. So that's why I'm like, if I have to ask a question, that's what I would, like
Okay.
if I didn't.
So just the flat floor itself, it took at least a good month or so for that epoxy to cure. And so the size and dimension was actually, we had constraints because we were actually inside of a building that's at Marshall Space Flight Center. And so we only had a certain amount of footprint. And so because we needed the floor space, we needed to have spacing for the computers, because there are also some overhead cranes that's in that facility. So we actually had to have spacing for computers, for other types of equipment that's going to be utilized in the laboratory. So we had to decide how much of the footprint we needed. So this is going back to making some of those assumptions. If we need a flat floor, why do we even need a flat floor? And one of the questions that we needed to answer was, how can we produce a gravitationalist type atmosphere on Earth? Okay, so that was one of the questions that we had to answer. And so I gave y'all one of the answers to the questions already. What are some of the real world questions that we had to answer? And so the flat floor is necessary because once you have those thrusters, when they showed you a picture of the little circular thing at the bottom, that was actually a thruster. So air goes through those thrusters so it can lift you off the floor. And so if you only can be lifted off the floor a certain number of millimeters, then how do you produce this flattest floor? And that's where some of the questions that were answered, Paul. Great question. Michael, you have any questions? Or did you determine any real world questions or problems?
I couldn't hear anything. I'm not sure if it was supposed to be that way or not. So,
Dr. Chavis, could you
Yes.
replay the video again?
Replay. Okay.
With the audio.
Okay, so let's see what happened with the audio here. I will turn up my audio on my computer. And let's see, I heard it. Let's see if we can play this thing again. Can y'all hear it now? Could you hear anything at that point?
We didn't hear anything, Dr.
You did
Chavis.
not hear anything. Hi, my goodness. So that means it is playing through my speakers. Well, let me see if I can do something by trying to get on Zoom double time and launch the meeting so you all can be able to hear what I hear on the outskirts. This will just take me a quick second to get to the link. Link to the conference flyer. Click here to join. I'm gonna launch the meeting. So will they ask me to join it to the right? It doesn't matter. So I don't even need to join the video. So the point is, once you all hear from this one, click join to transfer to the...
Chavis, didn't we have you in a session?
Yes, you do, but I'm trying to make sure people hear video. So I wanted them to be able to hear what was happening on my computer screen since they were not able to hear it through the actual presentation. Can you all hear her asking me a question now?
We did.
Yes,
Okay, so awesome. That's all that I needed. So I'm going to join in this room. Hopefully it's not a double echo. Once the video stops playing, I'll turn this off. Let me
turn your volume off now. Here you go.
Okay, turn it down here. Thank you for that suggestion. Here we go.
we still don't get sound, Dr. Chavis.
You don't hear the sound?
No.
Can you hear the sound now?
No.
You don't hear the sound.
There's too much echo. It's echoing a lot.
Let me see how I don't know why.
Would you like to turn your sound down? Why don't you narrate the video for us?
Narrate the video for? Okay. So Right now, what is happening, I'm giving you a description of standing on the flattest floor in the world. I'm saying that the flat floor is like a giant hockey floor. I'm giving you who I am at Marshall. Dimensions of the floor. There's a smooth operator song being played, and it's giving you the description now of the flat floor. This right here is talking about simulation of the gravitationless floor. And so those are the thrusters that I was referencing. And here is saying you can float. What it's showing you now is the docking capability that we have at Marshall to simulate what's happening with the shuttle and the ISS. That vehicle that you see is 2,000 pounds. And all I needed to do was just push that vehicle, which is a 2,000 pound vehicle. Once I just push it, and if the floor is so flat, I can't move this thing. I'm gonna just get out. Leave. Because the floor is so flat, once that vehicle is raised through the air that's going through the thrusters, then you can easily push 2,000 pounds. And if you all have done any type of weightlifting before, just to push anything that's over 100 pounds is very difficult. And that was a 2,000 pound vehicle that I was able to just push. And as you saw, it started to float. And so hopefully that was a quick description, and I hate the technical difficulty that occurred there. I thought I had done a test on it and it played and I can hear the audio. So I do apologize for that, but hopefully you can still find out what were some of the real world questions or problems that we answered. So Michael, now having that little description, do you have any questions that you think that we came up with?
How did y'all make it float again? I'm sorry.
How do you make it float?
2,000 pounds. How was you able to, what was the process of doing that again?
Okay, so you have thrusters, and the thrusters, if you, it's like you have to push air through those thrusters to be able to lift the vehicle. And we had 3 different thrusters on each corner of the vehicle. And that allows the air, once it goes through those thrusters, it pushes the vehicle off the ground by some millimeters. And with the floor being so flat, it's able now to just move or manipulate. And we had a computer that was sitting on top of that surface, and the computer has software that's using LabVIEW. It has some MathCAD. It has some MATLAB software that's running to make it autonomous, so you can actually simulate the docking that happens in space. And so that's how we were able to get that vehicle to float like it does. You need air, you need the thrusters so the air can flow through those thrusters, and then it pushes the vehicle off the floor. And you all saw the small little triangular table that I was sitting on acting a little crazy. That is also just a way for us, when we have demonstrations in that laboratory, we allow students to sit on that table so they can feel how easily it is to just glide and float like an astronaut would actually be floating in space, because the gravitation is taken away by allowing you to float on air. More questions. So one of the questions that we had to ask was, how can we create that gravitationless atmosphere? How can we be able to simulate the docking aspect to ensure that the vehicle is guided into the proper location? Because it definitely has to be at the right location for both of those components to actually connect and then be able to lock. So we needed to have cameras doing that. And we had the advanced video guidance system, which was that little component that was sitting on top of the vehicle. And it uses the camera and all of its different angles and views to be able to see the docking location so it can navigate that vehicle directly into the location where the vehicle is going to dock. So our main question that we were trying to do is, how do we create the gravitationalist atmosphere, and how can we simulate docking in our environment to be able to help advance some of the different technologies that are needed to make our docking autonomous. Any more questions? I'll ask some. Go ahead, Dr. Gooch.
We're going to take some more questions in the Q&A time.
Okay, of course, I'm almost at the end now. So overall, the mathematical modeling that was done with that in that laboratory, I mean, we had to use a lot of mathematics to be able to work with the cameras from a qualitative perspective. What were some of the assumptions that we made to be able to model the space environment? And of course, you saw that it was all dark. It was definitely black in the background. So utilizing all of the black curtains, the black epoxy, just making it look like space. So we use mathematical modeling. That was a simple solution, but the complex one was more so in pertaining to how can we use the cameras to be able to automate docking. And so a lot of mathematics was involved in that. I actually created some software to be able to infiltrate the system, the camera system, by putting other types of stars and things in the background, so it will mess with the camera's view. So therefore, we had to do all kind of different things to use mathematics to model these situations and to answer these real world problems. So from a reference perspective, I use the Society of Industrial and Applied Mathematics Modeling Handbook, and that's at the website cm.org. The video, of course, it was published and broadcast all over the world. DragonflyTv for pbs.org/slow/DragonflyTV, and some of the real world experiences of how you utilize mathematics was gathered from Pi Day, and that's the website for piday.org. And so that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Chavis.
Dr. Gooch.
Thank you, Dr. Chavis, for a beautiful presentation.
Okay, two people are talking at the same time. So are you saying, Dr. Gooch, I need to wait until after Dr. Peters does his presentation and then there will be more questions?
Yeah, if we have time at the end, we're going to go back to that question and answer. Right now, we're going to go into our lived experience with Ms. Joanna Hobson.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Dr. Chavis, for a beautiful presentation. And our next speaker is Joanna Hobson, and she is alumni from Lane College and now a student at University of Alabama. Please welcome Joanna.
Hello, everyone. Trying to get control of the screen. I do have a question. Am I just sharing my screen?
Yes, you are. You're sharing your screen.
Okay. All right, there we go. Let's see.
If you would put your presentation in presentation mode.
I'm not sure how to do that.
Go back, go to slideshow from the
Okay.
beginning. Yes.
Okay, there we go. All right, so hello everyone. My name is Joanna Hobson, and I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about my path to PhD, my lived experience, and what I'm doing currently. So I've done some research in biology and molecular biology with Dr. Melanie Van Straat at Lane College and also with Dr. Jackson Hayes at Rose College. I'm currently a PhD student here at UAB in the Behavioral Neuroscience program, where we're looking at the impact of insomnia on pain and inflammation in people who have HIV. And so one of my specific projects is to figure out how do psychosocial stressors like discrimination affect the overall health outcomes of vulnerable populations. So to relate this to mathematics, what we use to answer questions like this is statistics. And so I'll keep going.
Ms.
And so this is
Hobson.
just a summary. I'm sorry.
Yes, if you will click enable editing, because you're still in edit mode versus presentation mode.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Okay. Go back to your presentation.
Okay. Am I still screen sharing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There we go. All good? Okay.
We don't see your screen,
I'm
Joanna.
not,
Oh, you don't see my screen?
no.
Okay. Let's see. Mhm. There we go.
Okay. So, yes, go back to from the beginning. Okay, there we go.
Okay. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
All right. So this is just a summary of what I've been doing. So at Lane, I did research, of course, with Dr. Van Straat. Also did research at Rose College. I participated in the HCOP program at Marquette. I was a health ambassador for the HBCU Wellness program at Meharry, where I also joined the Lane College Science Club, and I did some tutoring, and I was an RA. And so this next slide is just pictures of my experiences from conferences and like joining the HBCU Wellness program. We got to meet a lot of people and talk about our work. So now I want to talk to you a little bit about my work, what I'm doing currently, and why I feel it's important. And so in the 1980s, the HIV and AIDS epidemic began to affect and kill predominantly heterosexual men, infants, and the spouses of infected men. And at this time, treatment was unavailable and patients were quickly developing infections. And so from the late 1980s to the early 1990s, nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitors were developed, and they were slowing the progression of AIDS and managing symptoms. However, death tolls were still rising. And so from 1995 to the present day, new treatments were developed and people living with HIV and AIDS were allowed to live longer. However, there was still a problem. So they were allowed to live longer, but there were still other conditions that these people were affected with that were affecting their health-related quality of life. And so this is where my research comes in. So this picture to the right is just of Bobby Campbell. He was one of the first men affected with HIV and AIDS. That is him with his significant other standing proud in his status. So this is an article that was published in 2014 where the World Health Organization came up with a global health strategy for HIV for the years of 2016 to 2021, basically saying that they wanted 90% of people living with HIV to be diagnosed, 90% of those people who are diagnosed to be on treatment, and those who are on treatment to be virally suppressed. And this paper is basically saying that there should be a fourth 90, where we should look at the health-related quality of life of these people living with HIV. So not only should we be concerned with diagnosis and treatment, but we should be concerned with their overall health. All right, so Chronic pain is a common condition in people living with HIV. It affects about 39 to 85% of people living with HIV, and is associated with non-adherence to ART therapy, retention and care, and adverse health outcomes. It's also associated with poor sleep, mood disorders, and things like substance use. And what we've found is that people living with HIV and chronic pain are often underdiagnosed in clinical settings, and they're improperly treated. And so this picture to my right is just a glimpse of a study that was done back in 1997, where they got about 315 in and out patients of people living with HIV and chronic pain. And so basically what it's showing is that on the x-axis, this is pain ratings, and on the y-axis, this is their quality of life. And so basically what you see is that people who don't have as much pain, that score higher on the quality of life questionnaire than people who have worse pain ratings of greater than 5, and people who have pain ratings of less than 5. And also people who have pain ratings of greater than 5, their quality of life is lower than those who have less pain symptoms. So now I'm going to talk to you about substance use and pain in people living with HIV, because this is of particular interest to me as well. So in 1997, the CDC made an announcement that injection drug use accounted for almost half of new HIV infections. And people living with HIV and people who inject drugs are also undertreated in healthcare settings. And so what this may lead to is like an increased burden of the HIV infection itself. It may lead to greater pain, and it may also lead to self-treatment to cope with pain in the HIV disease. So another thing that I'm particularly interested in is sleep and pain in people living with HIV. So one thing that has been found recently and over the years is that sleep is a predictor of pain, and pain can also predict sleep, but sleep is a stronger predictor of pain than pain is of sleep. And so what we want to figure out is how to remedy sleep deficiency to provide better treatment for individuals living with chronic pain, as well as for people living with HIV, since chronic pain is common. And so this is basically a snapshot of things that need to be done in order to do these. So I won't point out everything, but some of the things is like basically promoting basic research to figure out what are the mechanisms linking sleep and pain in people living with HIV. Being cautious with sleep disturbing medications when treating people who have chronic pain, and then also hosting biopsychosocial interventions to deal with sleep and pain in people who have HIV. All right, so just to kind of wrap up on main points, so pain is prevalent among people living with HIV and does contribute to a poor health-related quality of life among these individuals. Pain is often undertreated among vulnerable populations affected by HIV, and symptoms of the HIV infection are also underdiagnosed and undertreated. Intervention studies are needed simply because chronic pain is a problem. It is associated with substance use, which is also a big problem, and it's associated with poor sleep, which is also a huge problem. And we want not only for people living with HIV to be able to live longer, but to live a healthy and happy life. So now I'll get into the fun stuff. So we're going to talk about how you can measure pain, what we do in my lab. So pain is a highly variable experience, and it differs across individuals, and it also differs within that same person across days and weeks. So one question that we might have is, are people reporting pain differently because they perceive it differently, or is it because they're having a good or bad pain day? So how you perceive your pain today may not be the same as how you perceive your pain tomorrow. And then another question we have is, what about measuring pain experiences of healthy people without a chronic pain condition? So one of the ways we can measure pain in people is through scales. So we can use numeric rating scales, like here. We can use visual analog scales, so people can like basically give us a rating of 0 to 10, how bad does this hurt? And we can also use the brief pain inventory, which is basically a questionnaire that allows the person to show where their pain is and how intense is their pain and how much it affects them. So another thing that we use in lab currently is quantitative sensory testing. So basically what this is a collection of tools that we use to measure the pain experience of humans. So we can measure this in healthy individuals that don't have pain. We also measure this in people with chronic pain conditions. So it's needed because it provides you with non-invasive procedures that you can basically mimic certain chronic pain conditions. It allows you to see basically what's going on when people have chronic pain. And also it's useful because you can basically, like I just said before, it's non-invasive, and then also it allows you to get a sense of variability in pain from people who are healthy versus people who have actual chronic pain condition. So one of the things that we use to measure heat pain is a thermode. So that is what this is on my right. And so basically what we'll do is we'll place the thermode on the participant's non-dominant forearm, and certain temperatures, we can set the machine to certain temperatures, allowing the temperature to go up and down, and the participant will rate their pain from 0 to 100. And as you can see, this may vary between people, and to give us a glimpse of who's more sensitive to pain and what can you do about that, and why is that important. And we can also use a cold pressor. So basically what this picture is on my right is of someone dipping their hand into very cold temperature water, and they're able to rate their pain also from 0 to 100, and it gives you a sense of how sensitive people are to cold pain. All right, and then another thing we use is our ergometer. And so what this does is measures sensitivity to mechanical pain and also mechanical pain thresholds. So what we do is we apply pressure to people's forearm and their trapezius, and we'll see how much they can take. All right, so to wrap things up, I'm going to talk to you about what I'm doing currently and what I'm about to do for my previous and the years after. So the picture on my further left is from my PI in my lab, where he talks about the association of sleep and pain. So that's something I'm interested in, as well as the picture under is not from my lab, but it's something I'm particularly interested in, where people looked at the association between perceived racial discrimination and risk of insomnia among middle-aged and older Black women. So I'm interested in how discrimination affects sleep. And then also this article at the bottom left is looking at this impact of sleep problems on quality of life in transgender populations. So this picture of a stethoscope on a colorful flag just is a symbol of me wanting to look at health outcomes in the LGBTQ population. And then also to my further bottom right, this is just a picture of a Black doctor / scientist, letting you know that, you know, we do belong here and our work here is important. And what she's asking is, do you have poor sleep? So let's see what we can do about that. So all of my references are in my notes section if anybody wants them. And then also, if you have any questions, I'm free to answer.
I have a couple of minute questions for Ms. Hobson. Are there any questions for her?
I got a question. Is there any type of people or gender that you've noticed that has a higher pain threshold, if any? Have you seen a trend or something?
So I can name a few people who are more likely to have pain. So women are more likely, minorities, older populations like older people. That's pretty much what I can think of off the top of my head. I actually had a slide in there, but I took it out. But so it's like women, older people, minorities, also people with poor sleep have greater pain, and people who use substances.
Thank you.
Joanna, just a quick thought that came to mind. For the women's perspective of pain, is it more so due to labor or birth, or was it something else that was concluded as to why women are considered having more pain than men?
That's a good question. So pain is a subjective experience. So basically what they found in literature is that women are more likely to express that they're perceiving pain, like they're feeling pain, and they're more likely to basically say, hey, this hurts and this hurts really bad. Versus men, sometimes they don't really express that they're feeling pain, so they may feel this pain, but women are more verbal about it. That's what we found.
I have a question with regards to how you measure sleep. How do you define good sleep? Because it's more than just a number of hours.
Mm-hmm. So what we use to measure sleep, we can use what we call actigraphy. And so basically we'll have participants wear an active watch. And the active watch measures sleep, it measures how long they're in light, it measures physical activity. And so basically they'll wear it overnight for about 7 days, unless they're doing like a 6-week follow-up. And when they go to sleep, they'll push the button. And when they wake up, they'll push the button. And what we can do is we can look in the computer and see basically how are they sleeping. And I think one thing that will define good sleep is something called sleep efficiency. So you can look at how long this participant was in the bed versus how long they were actually asleep. And then you can also look at sleep onset latency, which is basically how long does it take that person to fall asleep. If it takes them longer than 30 minutes, that's a problem. And then also wake after sleep onset, which is basically, do they wake up in the middle of their sleep and how long are they awake? Are they able to go back to sleep? And then also another measure is like when they wake up in the morning, how are they feeling? Do you feel refreshed? Does your sleep feel good?
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem.
All right. If there are no more questions, let's thank Ms. Hobson. And we have another presentation for us. Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you for having me.
So we are going to be hearing from Dr. Peters and Dr. Nelson, and they're going to be talking about their mathematics problem involved in building a portable solar energy generating system. So I will yield the floor to them now.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Hello?
Yes, we hear you. We hear you well.
Okay, I'm trying to start our video, but it says it's been stopped by the host.
Okay. Are you able to share your screen now?
No, we're just trying to start the video. Do we need to share the screen instead? No, we just need to start the video.
Okay.
Like turn our camera on, but every time I click it, it says it's stopped by the host.
Mr. Fitzpatrick, do you want me to try and see if I can go back to presenting? Just to help troubleshoot?
Yes, the screen is in share mode. Yes, if you will.
Okay. And
We see your screen.
okay. Can you hear anything? Could you hear anything just to know if she could be able to play video?
No.
No, we can't hear you.
Okay.
I just need to be able to turn my camera on.
Okay.
Yeah. Every time I do that, it says the video has been stopped by host.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So the difficulty is they can't start the video on their end, Dr. Nelson and Dr. Peters. And it says that that there is a host issue.
Are they sharing their screen? I'm looking at Dr. Chavis's screen.
Right. Yeah, we get hers in very well. Mine's,
Okay, so
yeah.
she has to stop sharing her screen before anyone else can share theirs.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So who's trying to share?
Yeah, she was actually getting this message before we did a test again with Dr. Chavis's, just to make sure that we were clear on our end.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So Dr. Nelson, will you try to start your video again?
It's saying the same thing. You cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm trying to find you so that I can.
And I think the video is just the mirror turning on of the camera. So you will see my face. That's what is stopping. It's not allowing me. Okay.
Okay, so yeah.
Can you see me now?
Yes, we see you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome everyone. I'm Dr. Nelson. I'm an assistant chemistry professor here at Payne College. And today myself and Dr. Peters, who will be coming up right after me, will be discussing mathematics as it relates to solar energy. And as Dr. Chavis already stated, what are some of these real world issues or real world problems that we are solving with math? And as we know, or hope most of our students know, at this point, we're having, for new sustainable energy sources, we're having like an economic, a technological, and an environmental issue, real world issue that's coming up. We're using our non-renewable energy sources like our coal, gas, fossil fuels at a faster rate that they can replenish themselves. So we had to come up with a new way of energy, and one of that was solar energy. So what we started looking at in our classrooms, we then tried to give more hands-on training for our students to see, okay, how can we use math, physics, even chemistry, and solve a real world issue? So what we started doing was implementing a project or an assignment in lab where students started to build solar panels, and a demonstration is right here, and also battery packs, and how we will use it to then provide energy to simple household items. And this is also useful and meaningful. For example, we just experienced the Hurricane Sally that just passed. So a lot of people on the coast have lost energy. If our students realize that, okay, knowing and being able to use some of these science or math and putting them together, they could build their own energy pack or solar system and have it charged. They could maybe power a light bulb, a fan, as we'll see here, in some more household items. So that's the direction of our demo that we'll be going in today. And Dr. Peters will take over.
Dr. Nelson, are you still live?
Yes, I'm still here, but it seems as if the screen now is frozen.
Mm-hmm. Just the connection.
Did you hear everything I said before?
Yes, we heard everything you said.
Okay, ugh. But this is the part where the demo is going to be shown by Dr. Peters.
Yeah.
So
there is a connection problem.
Yeah, that's helped, yes. Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me?
We hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, we
All
hear
right.
you well.
All right, thank you. I hope our day is going well thus far. And so today, as Dr. Nelson mentioned, I just want to mention, one of the means by which, could you turn off your mic? One of the means by which we make the practical application relevant to the student. And so one of the reasons why I saw the panel is that was one of the ways we could tie it into the student's experience. And so we have a number of students that live in the coastline areas that are oftentimes affected by hurricanes. We also have a number of our students also that are in the rural areas. And so oftentimes there are problems faced in terms of power outage. And so we found that this was one of the ways to pique their interest and really to tie in some of these applications. So here are a number of applications we've done. We've had these portable solar panel, which involves starting from scratch. Now this is a pre-made solar panel, so we present the concept, what is involved in the concept. And then from there, we gradually have the student independently get involved in the implementations and designs. And so some of the things, even starting from the freshman and the sophomore level, they could start in basic mathematics such as, calculating the voltage, calculating the power rating. And then interestingly, it says, okay, for particular applications, if I wanted to use a light, 8 watts, an energy efficient light consisting of 8 watts, then what size or capacity battery I would need. So that would be the type of mathematics involved. And then from a single battery, we introduce the concept of, parallel circuit. They could see, reinforcement of those types of concepts. And so here you cannot see that, but I can let this be available. Here are the solar panel. I believe you'll be able to see that now, but it's solar panels of these types that we eventually have them to build. Then we introduce concepts such as the inverters, circuits. Again, we started by giving them the basic concepts, and then we can look into how do we integrate the inverters and so forth into the circuit. And when I talk about inverter is, we are using 12 volt deep cycle batteries. And so there is maybe a need where we want to convert from a DC current rating to an AC current rating. So these are some of the type of projects that are involved. And then we build it up gradually, right? So then when we get to the juniors and the seniors, then we can look into modeling, because actually in terms of the solar panel, modeling plays a very important role in terms of cost, the efficiency of of energy absorption, and also, in terms of geometry, the positioning of the solar panels, and designing and implementing devices that can assist in that regard. So these are some of the things that we've looked at. And then, so the students are now able to see that, or utilize their area even from college algebra, pre-calculus, geometry, differential equations. Now they're able to apply them in those instances. But so far we find that, okay, so sometimes we find that as a result of that, I even have called some students who want to pursue on their own now. They're trying to build their own portable devices. And so we're seeing a real impact in having this project integrated into our college physics classes. So outside of lighting needs, one of the things that help to pique their interest is, as I showed the light demonstration, okay? And then we looked at the correct rating. And so they would ask, okay, how long for a particular size or capacity would my light rating be, right? So they would do these type of calculations. Or sometimes it says, if you want to save energy in the event of an emergency. And so we looked at ratings for devices that may not need alternating current, that you can save electricity in that case. So here we have a fan that utilizes direct current. And I'll just plug this in. You may not be able to see that, but it's actually performing well. And this only uses anything under 1.2 to 2 watts. And so they can actually do the calculation to figure out, in the event of an emergency, for a particular wattage, if this portable solar generator is 400 watts, they can figure out, okay, this is how many days of energy supply that I would have in that case. So I also have, and you probably won't be able to see that, but we also build, even going back to the parallel and series circuits, what we can do, we start with the household batteries, but then we take it a step further where we can build, because these may not be able to do certain applications. So for instance, we designed one that could power a heater blanket, that would serve well in the winter. And so, in that case, we had to do multiple batteries. So then they're able to see, an application where your batteries are connected in parallel. They see that the voltage stays the same across the parallel connection and so forth. Not only the mathematics, but also a reiteration of the science concepts. In addition to this also, now they will ask questions. Now they start thinking about other things. So they will ask, okay, what if it's a situation where there's not much sunlight? Or, oftentimes we know there are times of the year where there is not as much hours of exposure to sunlight. And so that's where it comes into design, where it says, okay, let's integrate other capabilities, such as in addition to allowing these deep cycle batteries to be charged by solar means, let's devise a means where that they can be charged by an electrical outlet. So we have worked on integrating these features also, which is also great because, you know, in the situation, you know, and for the students who have built these for themselves as a result of these activities, they could have them at home plugged into an outlet where the charge can be maintained. You have a float charge. And so as a result of that, you know, these batteries will be well maintained. So then the thought process starts to be within the students. So that's these are the key things. So at this time, I will entertain any questions. Are there any questions that you have for us?
Remember, if you have a question, to take yourself off of mute.
Or is there a particular part that you would like me to reiterate or go over?
Yes, can you give a little bit more insight as to what all of the components are for the solar panel? So are you saying it needs the solar panel, the batteries, and I can't tell what the fan is in front of it. Did you need the fan so it could keep the battery cool?
Okay, so I'm glad that you asked your question. Great question. So let me get into that part. So the fans, basically the idea of the fans and the light, those are appliances. So it's really not to keep it cool. Cooling would only be required if when we transition to this stage, I've known some individuals that have transitioned to the portable, where they're now able to build a system in a shed or a storage powerhouse in the backyard. Then you would need some sort of cooling during the summer months with high temperatures. So these devices we normally use to predict basically what are the needs. So if I need, in the event of an emergency and I need some sort of fan or cooling for personal use, this is the capacity that we would have. So to answer your question on what does it involve, first of all, so you have the solar panel. So we start with the solar panel, which deals with it does the energy absorption, which functions in the same fashion as the leaves absorbing energy. So sometimes we've even drawn analogies with photosynthesis and energy absorption of a solar panel. And then we'll discuss, okay, what are the limitations of the solar panel, okay, in terms of the spectrum, the absorption of sunlight. Then what we also have involved is you need a solar charge controller. And what this does, what the solar charge controller does is it converts that energy to the 12 volts or based on the rating of the battery. So we have to make sure the rating is the same. So these are 12 volts batteries, hence the solar charger is a 12 volt. And so what it does, it channels that energy into the battery for storage. Now on sunny days, it has the capability where you could garner energy directly from the solar charge, from the solar controller, while it's charging the battery at the same time, where you can have energy stored for later use, you know, at the sunset or in the evening. So I could open. Okay, so this is what this one looks like on the inside. So this is a small battery. This setup actually provides 216 watts. So we have the battery. Now this one has a built-in solar controller. So there's a solar controller and it consists of the battery. And then it has these outlets in terms of monitoring the voltage. So we have an interface where you can have the voltage readout. There is a cigarette lighter connection, and there are USB connections. So I could, on a nice sunny day, I could actually, there's a port that allows for the charging of the solar energy, right? It's a cigarette lighter connection. So I can pretty much connect the cigarette lighter to that solar input port. And we're all ready to go because the controller is already built into the system. So to answer your question, what are the key components necessary is we have the solar panel, we have you need the solar charge controller, and the battery. Now, the type of battery that is utilized is very important. So we reiterate with the students, you cannot use a regular battery that you use in your vehicle. It's usually a deep cycle batteries. Examples of these deep cycle batteries are normally those found in the golf carts. As you find those batteries, they could have a deep discharge without damaging the battery. So these are the type of batteries that we utilize in this case. And then we think of increasing the features, right? And so right now, the capability is I only have direct DC current. And so I can involve a charge inverter or voltage inverter. And what it does is it converts that 12 volts to 120 volts. But as oftentimes we will discuss that, we can find ways to avoid having to convert from the 12 volts to the 120, because doing so also, you actually utilize energy from the battery. And so that is why I mentioned, as in the instance of the fan, which is DC powered, that would be one way to save energy in the event of an emergency. And the final stage that I mentioned is then it's taken a step further, whereas sometimes we got to think of, okay, what are the limitations? And so we know there are some times when, there may not be a lot of sunshine. Like today in Georgia, we've had some cloud covers, and even for a couple of days. So how do you handle that situation? And so we have features where you want to keep your battery charged. You can also charge the battery by plugging directly into the wall. And so what we do from here now is, instead of using the commercially available parts, how do we start building them and learn more about circuitry in terms of creating our own motor? And then we looked into this, how we actually save a lot of money by starting to integrating the inverter circuits and the charge controls by ourselves. So that really is the overview. Did that help?
Thank you, Dr. Peters.
All right, you're welcome.
All right. We have the notice that we have about 5 minutes left. So I want to go ahead and thank Dr. Peters and Dr. Nelson for their presentation and information here. Are there any final questions? I don't see, I think everything that was in the chat has been addressed. Are there any final questions for any of our presenters? Hearing none and seeing.
Dr. Gooch, I did see one question from Michael about the importance of having the floor flat and what issues would have been caused. And so I don't know, did I answer that question for you, Michael, or do I still need to answer that question?
You still need to answer it.
Okay, so the floor needs to be flat so that once the vehicles are hovering over it, it does not, okay, so let me just give you an example. Let me turn my video back on. if there are dips in the floor and the vehicle is trying to ride over a dip area, if it's a dip that goes under, it's not going to be a problem. But once you have a dip that goes under, you got some of the epoxy that's going to rise, right? And once that rise occurs, if it's too high and the vehicle is only this far off the floor, but the dip is this high off the floor, then the vehicle gets stuck. So the floor has to super duper flat so that once the vehicle is going over at that small millimeter of height that is pushed off the floor, then it can easily just float across the floor. But if there are any issues with the floor having different elevations, it won't be able to float across the floor. So that's the importance of having a flat floor. And again, I do apologize that the video didn't play on the list.
You said it played on PBS?
Yes, it did.
How long ago?
That was back in 2007.
I was gonna say it looked familiar. In my elementary school, they used to show us in science. They used to show us little PBS science commercials. I probably not seen you before.
Yes, you probably. Well, that was me. So yeah, if you saw that video, that was who I was back in the day.
Thank you for addressing that question, Dr. Chavis. So we're going to wrap this on up because we are about 2 minutes out now, and you guys are going to return to the main conference and get ready for the next breakout session. But let me just say this. I want to thank each and every one of our presenters today. You all did an awesome job, even in the midst of the adversity and technical difficulties. And it's important for you guys to see, especially those of you students who are starting to learn how to present your research. And this is a kind of a training and an opportunity for you to actually see what really happens with research. Everything does not always go as planned. Our presentations don't always go as planned, but they can still be effective. We can still get the information across, and you can still engage in learning some really important things. So I do hope that you all have embraced the information that was shared with you today. I hope you all learned something. And I hope that you all are seeing yourselves in the future. So again, thank you to everyone. And in a few moments, you guys should be prompted actually to return to the main conference. We're less than probably a minute out now, so you'll be prompted to return to the main conference on the main room. So I do hope that you enjoy the remainder of the conference. And thank you again to everyone who participated in this session.